Hey, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Recession Resistant Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Cobb, co-founder of HBG Capital. And today I want to talk about the 10 big lessons that I have learned developing and building neighborhoods, whether you're just starting out or in the middle of a development, or maybe even you're a seasoned developer. You might get something from this. These are my mistakes that you can literally just listen to this list and go apply, and it'll save you millions of dollars. I'm not joking. I've literally paid millions of dollars in mistakes, and I don't want you to. So we're going to jump into that. But before we do, if you get value from these episodes, please share these with your friends and family and leave us a review. It allows us to get higher quality guests and deliver more great content to you. Also, if you've been interested in learning more about receiving recession-resistant passive income from real estate direct to your bank account, head on over to our website, hbgcapital.net. Book a call with us on our calendar. We look forward to getting to know you. All right, I'm going to go through these. This is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to tell you a little story about each because each of these lessons hits home for me. So the first is, number one, the terms of the contract with the seller matter. This is going to be one of the hardest lessons you're going to learn. Never, ever, ever buy a piece of land until you have it either rezoned or entitled. I have seen people make this mistake going down to the city, and they get a little bit of buy-in from the planning department. They say, oh yeah, we would support this. This is great. And so they go ahead and buy the land from the seller at an inflated price. And then as they're going through the rezone process or they're going through the entitlement process, they run into issues with stormwater, which reduces the number of homes. They run into issues with the fire department. They have problems with grading. They have bids that come in really high, and it basically kills the deal. Do not ever buy a piece of land until you get it fully entitled and you basically get a final plat approval or you're very close to it. That alone will save you, oh my gosh, I would rather lose out on 10 good deals than make one bad deal. And this is by far the easiest way to make a very bad deal. So the terms of the contract matter. On our contracts, they basically say we cannot buy your property until we have it entitled and the value is there. And one of the great successes that we've had in our acquisition strategy is we go to the city first in the planning department, and we ask them what the vision is. They ask, what do you want in the community? And we ask, where do you would support rezones? Where do you want to see density? And then we go to those sellers directly, and it's a very easy conversation, usually a pretty high conversion when we're able to go to a seller whose home is worth $350,000 and say, hey, Mr. Seller, if I could give you $700,000 for this home, would you be interested? And most of the time they are. So we dictate the terms to have plenty of time for due diligence. We bake it into not like a time period to close, but basically certain conditions need to be met for the entitlements, which gives us a lot of leeway. All right, lesson number 2, the area matters. I've noticed that certain areas have high barriers to entry. Think California in 2 years to get a piece of land rezoned and entitled, and certain barriers are really low barriers of entry. Think, more rural areas where they're begging for development, and there are advantages to disadvantages to each. I used to think it was extremely disadvantageous to do stuff in California that took 2 years because it was so long. But once you have that approval and you're ready to build, you're not going to have any competition for 2 years. That is, if you've been paying attention to the market. That is a huge advantage when it comes to your absorption rates. Absorption rates, how fast your product's going to be absorbed, is something you want to pay attention to. Do not go and develop in areas where you're not going to have the absorption. The area matters. Number 3, the lot size matters. We had some lots where let me back up. Our strategy used to be, let's cram as many units as possible on this piece of land, right? More units equals more value. And then we started to realize that because of the size of the building envelope is basically the area that the home can go on, because the city requires front setbacks. In other words, a distance between the road and the home. There's side setbacks, the distance between the property line and the home, or the distance between the homes on the sides. And then you got rear setbacks, which is how far back your home can go before hitting a invisible wall that the city says you can't get past. This affects your building envelope, which is what your home sits on. And you want to be very particular about the product that you're building. You can't just go and have 100 lots that are 20 foot wide on there and have it approved, because you're going to build 10-foot wide homes and no one's going to want to buy that. So being very aware of what your building envelope is before you buy something, what size product is going to fit on it, and is that product what the area wants, is very important. Lesson number 4, your environmental, geotech, and endangered species reports matter. I knew of a guy who was developing a storage unit down in Florida, and there just happened to be this endangered gopher on this piece of land. And so when they found out that it had this gopher on the land, and again, he bought it, he'd done all his homework on this piece of land, it was a great deal, but he didn't do the endangered species report. Well, he got into it, he found out there were these gophers on there, and it got out, and so he had to hire this special firm to come and remove these gophers. Well, gophers are underground. They had to bring in special sonic radar detection equipment to detect the gophers in the ground, and then use, I don't even know how they use this. In fact, I'm probably going to go look at a YouTube video after this because I'm very curious. Very specific means of extracting these gophers from the ground. I mean, could you imagine trying to extract a gopher from underground without hurting it? Right? Like, so it ended up costing him, I think, somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 to remove these gophers off this piece of land where they were doing like 1,000 storage units or something crazy on it. It was a really big development. So make sure that you've got an endangered species report. Geotech, you want to see what the soils are. All the soil's good for what you're doing. You don't want to build on something that's, going to fall flat, or maybe you're building on a bunch of rock. Your horizontal cost is going to go through the roof having to remove all that rock. It's good to know that ahead of time. You don't want to buy something, start digging, and then hit rock, and then your horizontal costs double on you, and you're not expecting that. It's not in the budget. Very bad. And then environmental matters. You don't want to get sued if you build all these homes on some toxic sewage place, and somebody gets cancer from your project, and then you're sued and bankrupt for the rest of your life. Don't do that. Lesson number, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The civil engineer matters. We had a development where we were projecting the horizontal cost to be somewhere around the $500,000 to $600,000 range based on what the civil engineer drew up. Well, as we got into it, we found out that civil engineer was about 4 inches short on the amount of dirt that we had to remove over a 6-acre tract. Now imagine having to remove an additional 4 inches of dirt on the entire 6 acres. It was expensive. He missed things. He wasn't the greatest civil engineer, and it cost us about $250,000. Big lesson learned there. You want to work with civil engineers who've got a reputation and a track record. A lot of times your planning commissions for the area will know who these people are. Other successful builders and developers like to work with successful civil engineering firms, especially the big guys in town. Network, figure out who those firms are and use them. Number 6, the end buyer matters. We've been in this crazy real estate market for so long that, whatever you build sells. And that's not always going to be the case. You're going to have economic expansions and contractions, and certain products are going to do really well, just like certain areas are going to do really well. So it's important to be in those areas that are going to continue to do well and build the product types that are going to do really well. So, one thing that we learned is, what does your end buyer look like? And does that product fit on your development? Does it fit the area? If you're building out in rural areas where people want space, they want a little bit of elbow room, they want some land, and you're building these super tiny lots and super skinny homes that don't have any backyards, is that product going to sell? You might have a certain area that's very affluent, and they want 4,500 square foot homes with super modern finishes. And they want, 2 offices because they're working from home or whatever. That all matters. Certain products sell in certain areas, and making sure you understand who your end customer is before building the product is important. Have your end customer in mind before designing the product. Number 7, the design of the home matters. I can't tell you how crazy it is. You could have the exact same square footage home, and the way it's laid out could cost you an additional $6,000-7,000 in framing if you do it a certain way. If you build a 1-story home as opposed to doing a 2-story, you got to think if you're doing 1-story, you're going to have more foundation area that you have, and it's going to be wider, and you're going to use a little bit more materials for that. Versus if you do like a 2-story home, there's not as much insulation that you have to put into it. You're using a little bit less product. There's less framing that goes into it. There's some stuff you can do that doesn't cost you any more money, but it gives you more space. So the design of the home is very, very important. You don't want to put super high-end finishes like heated towel racks in a home that's designed for a first-time home buyer. That's just not important to them. And, likewise, if you're doing a really nice custom home that is for a very affluent person, you don't want to put really crappy vinyl floors in and carpet in the bedrooms. You want to put and design the home around their needs and wants. So the design of the home is very important, not just for your end buyer, but also for your cost and your design. How it's built is important. If a home is very straightforward and easy to build, and you're building the same home over and over again, you're going to fly through that. Whereas if you have different variations of home throughout an entire development, it's going to take some time to stop and think about each home and what needs to happen when you're building it. Versus if you don't have to think about it and you're just building the same thing, it can go a whole lot quicker. That's why a lot of these national builders have, these specific products. They have like a 30-foot product and a 40-foot product and a townhome product, because they know the exact, down to the piece, number of materials that it's going to take. So it reduces a lot of the waste, and it reduces a lot of additional trips, and it reduces a lot of, hey, we ran out of this, and the project stops and you got to go get it, and you got supply chain issues, and that's causing delays. So understanding what your design is and getting good at it makes a huge difference in the build. Number 8, cost codes matter. I can't tell you how many times before cost codes we got to an end of the project and we're over budget and we have no clue where. We got an idea of where we might be over budget, but we're not able to compare what we spent on the foundation per se versus what the actual budget was. What we budgeted for cabinets and what we actually spent, because all the invoices were just in QuickBooks and just basically in one big column. When we created cost codes, which was a way for us to code every single material and labor transaction to the trade that we budgeted, we were able to do an apples to apples comparison. So we had our budget and all the line items that we budgeted. And then on the right, we had exactly what our current spend to date was. It also allowed us to see how much more we needed to spend based on our contracts for that particular cost code. And at the end of the project, we noticed oh my gosh, we were consistently over budget on the foundation every single time. Oh my gosh, we're consistently over budget on, the stone, the stone every single time. Whatever that cost code is, you're able to then say, we're not good at this. We can either, one, we're going to do something about it. It's on our radar now. And 2, we're going to go out and actually try to reduce the cost on these things. So it gives you an idea of where to focus efforts. Number 9, your relationship with the codes department and the city matter. They can make your life a living hell, or they can make it very easy. Start to cultivate and build relationships with your inspectors and your codes offices from the get-go. Meet them out at the job sites. Call them. Get in touch with them. Go down there. Bring them coffee. And just sit down and ask them, hey, we're new to the area. We're just getting started. I've been doing this for a while, but, haven't worked with you. Want to take some time to understand what are you looking for when you come on site? What are you seeing most people fail right now? Are there any new adjustments in the code that we need to be aware of? Taking the time to sit down with them and build that relationship around their needs and wants really makes a big difference. I'll give you an example. Our guys got to the point where they have such a good relationship on some of the items, the codes inspectors don't even come out. If we send them some videos and some pictures of it, boom, they'll approve it. This speeds up the process tremendously. And like I said, if you get on their bad side, they can literally make your life a living hell. So your relationship with the codes department really matters. And finally, number 10, your warranty matters. I can't wait for the day when robots, maybe it will be Elon Musk's new Tesla robots, are building homes and we don't have as many mistakes. Right now, it's construction. It's done by humans. Humans are imperfect. There's, 30 plus different trades that build a home that all leave their mark on it. Mistakes are going to get made. It seems like at least 1 out of every 8 homes is going to have some problem that you need to go after and fix. So make sure you have a really good warranty process set up where at the closing table, your buyer can look at the warranty, understand exactly how it works, what's covered, what's not covered, what's their responsibility, and what's the process if something goes wrong, right? We've just noticed that there haven't been ways for the end buyer to get in touch with us a lot of times. Like they're calling their agent who no longer works for the brokerage anymore to try to contact our agent who then contacts us. Like make sure they've got clear line of sight to you, the builder, the developer, so that they can get in touch and get their warranty needs met. And make sure you leave a little bit of money set aside on every single home. I'd say at least a couple $1,000s to address any warranty needs that pop up. All right, guys, that's the 10 lessons learned from doing developments. Till next time.